Hey there, how's it going? This is Singapore. Today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Currently a very humid 82 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 28 degrees Celsius. I am back in Singapore for the 5th time. However, this is not my final destination. I'm just here on an overnight layover. On my way to somewhere else, a 2.5-hour flight away. You will find out in the next video. So in case I look and or sound a little wiped out, that is because I am, and you will be finding out why in the course of this story of the past 3 days of traveling to get here from Greece. Okay, so the famous Marina Bay Sands Hotel and the Merlion is a long walk away, about an hour's walk. I am not going to try to walk that way. I'm going to walk randomly. I wanted to get this video going now because the sun sets in like 20 minutes, and so it's going to be getting dark. So want to take advantage while we actually have some light to work with. So man, oh man, there is a lot to explain where to begin. So as you saw at the beginning there, staying in a capsule hotel, a good price, because Singapore is quite expensive. Where I'm going next is going to be much cheaper, and that is one of the reasons why I am going there. It is time to bring the prices down quite a bit after my European hello travels. But more about that later. So my last video was on Nisseros Island, Greece. As I discussed in a previous video, when I was on the little island of Ceramos, I wasn't sure where I was going next after that, either within Greece or after leaving Greece, because as I explained, I had to leave because my Schengen days were over. And so I was trying to make up my mind, so many options. And so first I decided to go to the island of Nisseros that I showed because it's one of my favorites, and have a few days of relaxing there and also figure out my plans. And so I was looking all over the map and finally made up my mind based on prices and just where I feel like being right now. It is not going to be the most interesting destination. I've been there before a few times, but I think it should be a nice time. I will be taking a little bit of a break from the videos, very likely there. Still will be posting, not gonna take a full month off or anything, but kind of the plan is to focus on some other things. All right, this is definitely an interesting looking part of the city. But anyways, you will find out about where I'm going next when I get there. So I decided where to try to get to. Then it was an issue of which route to take, because there were so many different options as far as flights and ferries and different cities to fly into. And so it really took some time to finally nail things down. And the way that it went, I got a great deal on my flight. So here's the route that I planned out, and you'll see why this caused a bit of anxiety looking ahead at it, at what I had in front of me and all of the potential problems that could arise, and some potential problems did arise. So the route was Nisseros Island, ferry to Kos Island, the larger Greek island where there's an airport. However, I wasn't going to catch a flight. instead, I decided to take another ferry over to Turkey, to Bodrum, which I've been to before, and so that's why I didn't film a video there. And then there is an airport there at Bodrum, flight to Istanbul, and then another flight from Istanbul. So that one was purchased separately, and then the two flights that I just did over the past like 24 hours from yesterday evening until arriving here just landed in Singapore an hour ago or so. It is now like 6:30 or something. And so I then purchased those two flights together on Indigo, and it was only like $190 for two 6-hour flights with a 3.5-hour layover in Mumbai. And so I was there early morning, and then flight from Mumbai to Singapore, and then with additional charges, seat selection, etc., came to I think $250. I will put prices down below for all these flights. And then I had another flight booked from Singapore to where I'm going next. So that was the route. And so I book a ferry online from Nisros Island over to Kos. Now the problem is that the ferry goes to a different port at Cardamena, whereas I need to get to Kos town, the main town and port, to catch that ferry over to Turkey. And it is about a like 35-minute or so drive, and I'm not quite sure how I will do that. I'm sure that there will be buses and taxis, but I booked that ferry for 3:30, and then I book another ferry for 5:15 from Kos town to Bodrum, Turkey. And so at the time, that seemed like enough time, but I hadn't actually broken everything down minute by minute to make sure that I actually had enough time. And then once I did that, I realized, oh crap, I am cutting it really close with this ferry, because basically if everything went smooth, I would arrive like 15 minutes before my other ferry departed. But first of all, that was if everything went smooth, and things oftentimes don't. And also, this wasn't a Greek islands ferry. This was a ferry to Turkey, and so there was going to be customs. So you take the ferries between the Greek islands, you can show up 5 minutes before the ferry and get on it. But that wasn't going to work for this ferry. And so I realized that I should book another ferry as a backup, because if I miss this ferry over there, then that really screws everything up as far as all my other flights and then accommodation as well, because I booked some hotels too. And so that would be a real disaster that I wanted to avoid, of course. And so I look online on the website, and there is another 3 ferries leaving the coast town over to mainland Turkey. There was only one ferry that day from Nisros to Kos, so I had to take that ferry. And so, wow, this is a really interesting area. Buddhist center there. Lots of street food and all types of people. So I look on ferryhopper.com for the other ferries going over to Turkey, and there are 3 options. However, 2 of them are sold out. There's only one later ferry left. And so I need to get that as my backup option. So I end up paying another like 29 euros, I think, for that other ferry. But that was the thing to do to make sure I didn't screw up everything. So I get the ferry across, and for one thing, it's a slower ferry. And so that was one of the calculations when I crunched the numbers and realized, okay, this isn't a 30-minute ferry, it's a 45-minute ferry. So there I lose 15 minutes. So we get over there. I step off the ferry and a viewer recognizes me. I didn't catch his name, but he was from Scotland, but seemed like he was working with the ferries. And so I tell him I'm in a hurry and can't really talk, but ask him, I'm going this way just to show the food and what's happening. Only fully vaccinated allowed to dine. Wow, is that current? You have to have your vaccination card to eat? Maybe that's an old sign from the old COVID days. Anyways, so he directs me to where to get a taxi. He mentions the bus, but I say that's not going to work. It stops at the airport and another place and is going to take longer. So it is within the realm of possibility that I can still catch this first ferry, which I would like to do just to get it done, because then you never know if there's going to be some issue with the other ferry. It's better, you know, just to get there as soon as you can, especially under these circumstances. So get in the taxi. He says it's only going to be 25 minutes because he's a taxi driver and they fly, basically. But then there's some traffic. It takes like 30-ish minutes. So he drops me off. But at this point, it is like 8 minutes before the ferry is going to leave. And so I'm realizing, okay, this probably is not going to work. And then I go to enter into the ferry port, and there's a desk there, and they say, what you have in your email is not the ticket. You need to go to this other desk to get the actual ticket for the ferry. And also I can see that there is a bit of a line for customs, so I'm accepting this probably isn't going to happen, and I'm very glad that I got that other ticket. So I go over to the desk with my email. They give me a regular ticket. Okay, so I kind of skipped over one little element here, which is that I only had a 50 euro note left in euros cash, and I was trying to avoid having to make another withdrawal, and I wasn't sure how much that taxi was going to be. So I was thinking, you know, it might be 50, 60 euros, and then I was wondering what I was going to do. I was going to hope that I could bargain him down to 50. But fortunately, he says 40 euros. So great, that leaves me 10 euros left. And that 10 euros came in handy. So I get to the ferry port and go to get the ticket. And she says 5 euro port fee, something like that. An extra fee for the ferry port. And so I pay that and then confirm, yeah, I'm too late. I can't get to this ferry. So I now have like 45 minutes before that other ferry departs. So I'm getting hungry and definitely considering the options. It's going to be like a tough choice figuring out where to eat, but I will do that after I finish the video. But I'm definitely happy that I walked this direction just randomly, because I might have never been to this part of Singapore before, and it is just so colorful and happening. My battery is about to die, so I'm going to put in another battery. All right, so I now have about 45 minutes before that second ferry. 45 minutes before I need to be there in order to go through customs and be ready to catch the next one. So I walk over to a nearby restaurant, get an ouzo, hang out for a little bit, and then walk back over. And when I get back there, there's absolutely no line now. And so I go through customs in a minute, and then I am in the waiting area, which is outside a little bit early. So I'm standing around along with a small crowd of other people, and I hear someone behind me say, "Do you speak English?" And so I turn around and he's talking to me, and I say yes. And so I'm thinking that he's going to ask about the ferry or something like that, but he just wanted to talk. So he was from San Diego. Now I forget his name. It might have been Mike. And he was just a very talkative guy. He had an interesting situation. He was in that part of the world because he needed to get a dental implant. And back in San Diego, it was going to cost him $7,000, whereas he could get it in Istanbul for $1,000. So he decided to make a trip out of it. And he had just come over from Turkey for the day to Coast Island just to walk around for the day. And so we talk a lot, and then eventually we realize, looks like this ferry is not going to be on time. So the time of departure comes and goes, and no sign of the ferry. We do get assurance from the workers there that it is coming, but it ends up being like 45 minutes, an hour late, something like that. So finally the ferry arrives, and we take it over to Bodrum. It is a nice, quick and easy entrance into Turkey through customs there. And then we get into Bodrum and go to a restaurant. I'm starving by that point, and he joins me. We have dinner. And then I have a hotel booked for that night. And so he goes another direction. We say, take it easy. See you later, maybe. Probably not. We didn't exchange contact info or anything, but he said he might follow my channel. So anyways, I get over to my hotel, get checked in. So my flight the next day to Istanbul, this flight was only, I think, $92 or $94 or something. I'll put it down below. But it is at 2:30 in the afternoon, so a great departure time. But that airport is about 35 minutes drive away from Bodrum. And so now I have the taxi issue once again. Now, I think Uber might have been an option, but actually Mike, if that was his name, was telling me that he'd had a problem with Uber in which it kept dropping the ride and then connecting him with another one, and it did this a bunch of times and took 45 minutes before he finally actually got his ride. And so based on that, I decided to skip Uber and asked at the front desk. They said they could arrange a taxi for me to just come down in the morning, and then they could have it in a few minutes. But then the issue is paying for it, because I don't have Turkish lira. I pay for dinner with a credit card. You can pay for most things with a credit card, so I'm hoping to avoid having to do a withdrawal, especially because the ATMs in Turkey have really high withdrawal fees. So the next morning, I get all packed up, head down, ask for a taxi, and she orders it and says it's going to be there in 2 minutes. And so taxi arrives, and so I had asked her to confirm with the taxi driver that I could pay with a credit card, and that was confirmed to be the case. So get in the taxi, we get driving, and 35 minutes later get to the airport. He pulls out his phone, and there's like an app in which you can do a tap credit card payment with this app on his phone. The price of the taxi was expensive. Turkey has gotten a lot more expensive because of the inflation. So it was going to be about like $42. So it wasn't a scam or anything. It was just an expensive taxi ride. But he tries to tap my card. It doesn't work. He tries again. It doesn't work. I say, okay, try this other card. He tries that card. It doesn't work. I give him another card. He tries that one. It doesn't work. I give him another card. So I have 2 credit cards, 2 debit cards, because I have a Canadian bank account and a Wells Fargo in the US. And then I also have a PayPal card, but I really didn't think that that was going to work if all the other ones didn't work. So he tries 4 times and it's not working. So now I have to go do an ATM withdrawal, and then the issue is, do I leave my big backpack in the taxi and trust this taxi driver, which he's probably trustworthy, especially since it was called by the hotel. So in that case, you can, complain if there's an issue because you have contact with that company. So probably fine, but still, you're a bit nervous about leaving your bag in there. But if you take it with you, then maybe the taxi driver has an issue with you taking all your stuff and leaving and going into the airport. But fortunately, he pulls forward, and there are ATMs right outside where I have sight of the taxi. So I leave my backpack in there. He seems trustworthy enough, and I can see him there. And I don't want to make an issue with the bag. So I go to the ATM, and sure enough, there's a $10 withdrawal fee, but I get the necessary lira and pay him. So that flight is at 2:30. I then have my next flight, which I had booked separately, the 2 flights that got me here, and that one leaves at 8 p.m. from Istanbul IST airport, the same one that I'm flying into. So I will land 4:30ish and then flight at 4, so that gives me plenty of time for that connection. So the flight goes smooth. All of my flights so far have been on time, no problems. But I get my bag, get checked in, check my bag for that other flight. I'm able to do it like 3.5 hours early or something, and so I have lots of time to hang out. And so as I am checking in, the lady there tells me that I have to fill out a Singapore Health Declaration online form to enter Singapore. And she shows me the website to do that. And so I get checked in, and then I'm doing this form, and it's asking me questions about my hotel and my flight out and stuff like that. And in the process of checking this stuff, I realize I made a mistake with my last flight, the one to my final destination, because the flight out of Istanbul, which left yesterday, was leaving on the 29th. But then it was arriving today on the 30th. And so that flight was landing around 5:15. I decided to stay for the night just to have a break and then to arrive in where I'm going next earlier rather than a late arrival. And so I book another flight separately for 4:50 p.m. But I booked it for today, not tomorrow. And so my flight coming from Istanbul is landing at 5:15. The flight to where I'm going departs at 4:50 p.m. So 20 minutes before the other flight coming here lands, and so that isn't going to work that I can just rearrange and catch that flight without spending a night here. And so I realized, dang it, I have to book another flight. And so I look online, and fortunately neither of them were expensive. The first one was $150. The one that I ended up booking tomorrow was $225, so I lost out on either 150 or 225 depending on how you look at it. But the total cost of all of the flights before my mistake was $492. And so this was also part of my calculation in booking the flights that I did, because when I was trying to book flights from Kos Island to Bali, then they were quite a bit more expensive than that if Expedia was going to put it together, or Skyscanner. And so the way that I put it together, I was saving like several $100s. But then I made this mistake, and that cost me a couple hundred or whatever. So still, when you add up all of the factors of booking 2 ferries, so I lost like 25 euros or something there, and then the taxi rides, and then my mistake, still it comes out to, let's do the math roughly here. So basically it was 500 for the flights plus 225 for the other flight that I bought. So now you're at 710, and then 60 for ferries, 770, and then 40 euros and again 40 euros, so 80 on top of it. So you're at about 850. So the way everything added up, it was still a reasonable price for all the distance that I'm covering. $850. Could have been cheaper, but a couple $100 is not the end of the world. So that is it. Looks like a mosque here. Yes, Bodrum Mosque. So man, oh man, it is humid in Singapore. I am sweating away in these pants. So I'm now walking back and ready for some grub. Now I have a tough decision to make, but as far as tough decisions go, it's a good one. I'm trying to decide where to eat in Singapore. So that is it. You will find out where I'm going in the next video. And I will just do my best to make some interesting content there, while also having a bit of relaxed time and doing some other things other than just videos every day. So see you in the next one. Have a good one.